And we are live. Welcome to episode 84 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. We got John K. Alvarez, your average talking monkey. He just got through digging a ditch out in the back right there. We've got another talking monkey right here who drives the car. Creative. Yeah, he drives the car, so, no problem, anything like that. And we've got Eric from Hey Internet Eric here.
I'm the monkey supervisor.
Indeed. He's got the clipboard. He's, he's checking all the boxes here and there, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. Now, this is the first movie that literally is of biblical proportions. We're talking about Gregory. When you get struck by lightning, we'll remember that you shook your hand there, Thomas. So I remember the first time I saw this back in the 90s. I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it on VHS. We rented it at that house in Smithville, and we all popped this in. And I started watching this thing, and there's Eric Stoltz, and I'm like, oh, Eric Stoltz, because I didn't know anything about it. I don't think I even rented it. It might have been Paul that rented it, or somebody else, or Jeff, or somebody like that. And we sat down, and I'm like, okay, we're starting with narration, and I'm like, okay, I'm not getting, and then it just took off. And I was like, oh, okay, this movie is fucking phenomenal. And we're talking about Gregory Wyden's The Prophecy. So shall we get it going?
Let's get it going.
You got it.
Boogie woogie. So the Peanut Gallery is in attendance today in the form of Fred Wedow, who questions why they still let us play with electricity. But luckily for us, these are battery-operated computers, and so they're good for about an hour, and then they make us go to bed after I can't even sure. Or in Eric's case, a fucking 16-ouncer of whatever libation happens to be on hand there. So good for him. This is a fantastic movie. I thought it was an original concept. I had never seen anybody make a movie like this before. It was 1995, so again, you're in that age where they're making small to mid-sized movies with a reasonable budget. They're not doing huge blockbusters, with few exceptions. They are. You're getting great people to drop in on these movies. Great casts, great writing, great direction. I don't know anything else that was done by Gregory Wyden outside of this. But he fucking hit it out of the park with this for the 90s. It could have been one of those movies where, it's a huge, ambitious sort of storyline. And you could have thrown a ton of money at it. Like somebody could have thrown like Lord of the Rings kind of money at it, or a Harry Potter movie kind of budget, that sort of, dollar sign attached to it, but they didn't. And I still think they came up with a hell of a movie.
Henry Rollins has this theory about ratios for artistic merit. You have a ratio for your ability to pull something off, and the other side is your artistic pretension. So, for example, he says that the Ramones are 1-1 because the Ramones had only so much pretension and they had so much talent and they pulled it off. So it's 1-1. This movie, like you said, they could have thrown money at it for days and it could have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger in scale. The fact that they pulled it off, even though it was such small scale, I would say it's like between pretension and ability to pull it off, 1-25 or 1-30, but somehow it came together. Because I unapologetically love this movie, but I can also look at it and go, yeah, I get why people say it's a piece of crap.
Mhm.
But for me, it's an awesome, awesome flick.
This was my first time ever seeing it.
Yeah.
Now I was excited to do this episode when Mike told me about it because, I was born in '81, so like my teenage years was going to Blockbuster in this, and I think this is either Miramax or Dimension or something like that. But the trailer played on like every single VHS that I would rent, and I would wonder what the hell it was, and I never got into like religious movies and stuff like that, and. My dad, God rest him, like he was not a horror movie guy. He was sci-fi and war movies. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And he took a chance because Christopher Walken was in The Deer Hunter, and that's one of my dad's all-time favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
And he would always tell me how much he loved this movie. He's like, Eric, you got to see The Prophecy. I don't want to see that shit type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it just kind of fell to the wayside for me. And then Mike brought it up for this week. I'm like, perfect opportunity to see what my dad was talking about. And all I did was look at the cast list, and Virginia Madsen was in a big movie of my, teenage years, was Candyman.
Mm-hmm.
I was a child of the 80s. Elias Koteas was in a lot of stuff that I watched back then, and then now he's in a lot of stuff that I watch now, like Apt Pupil. He's great as the homeless man, and just so much more. And then Eric Stoltz, again, I grew up Mask.
Mm-hmm.
He's in one of my all-time favorite movies, The Butterfly Effect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was so psyched just to see the cast. And when I sat down and watched this, phone was down because I knew I'd have to pay attention with the religious stories and stuff like that, which I know jack shit about, but I was able to follow along as I could. And I'm like, holy shit, this was really good. This was really fucking good. And it's a lot of it was based on the performances. And what I loved about this, I'm sure we'll get into his performances. I saw Christopher Walken after already seeing him now kind of like a parody of himself. Now he's the goofy, crazy old man. And that wasn't this Christopher Walken. So it was cool to see 90s Christopher Walken, you know what I mean? 80s kind of Christopher Walken. It was really cool to see what he used to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's 27 years.
Out of Pulp Fiction, because he made this right on the heels of Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's got that most memorable scene in Pulp Fiction, that's for sure.
Yeah,
so did Eric Stoltz, right on the heels of Pulp Fiction.
Oh yeah.
Stoltz too.
Yeah. To me, this is like a guilty pleasure movie because I, as the performer and then anything else in it, I could easily go down and say, "Well, that was wrong. That was stupid." I wanted to talk about the girl out of respect, the child, but there were moments. They were really trying to make a good movie, and you saw it. And that's the one thing I kept rooting for. Did some of the stuff not make it? I'm like, all right, but I can forgive that because the other stuff that did. I'm sorry, Christopher Walken just walking through the people going sleep. That stuff made it work.
I mean, it's a great touch to have Gabriel walking around with a trumpet. I wrote a series of short stories based on the same idea of angels having archetypes here, and like Mike Gabriel was sort of like Louis Armstrong, but the same thing. When I saw him carrying the trumpet, that hit really, really deep.
And when the kid blew it and blew out the windows, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, you want a mint?
Yeah, you want a mint? But that was the thing too. He was kind of also. Last time I played a character this dark, I felt was the one you and I covered, Mike, the Stephen King one.
Dead Zone?
Oh, the Dead Zone.
The Dead Zone.
Yeah, the Dead Zone.
Because it was kind of like if Johnny went to the dark side.
I'm not all that hung up on the religious accuracy because it's a Hollywood movie and it's not a biblical movie. It's a horror movie. And I was telling Bill for a short period of time, I had done some religious reviews. And so those are completely different types of movies. If it's coming from like Affirm Films or, something other than that, this is a 90s straight up horror movie. I think that successfully suspends disbelief.
Yeah,
correct.
You're invested in this story pretty much from, 2 or so minutes into it.
Right.
You've got that introduction scene where I was a little bit skeptical with Eric Stoltz, and I'm like, okay, I'm not exactly sure about this, but then it just sort of takes off. And absolutely right. You've got a fantastic cast. Elias Koteas is one of my favorite actors, probably one of the more underrated because I don't see him very often. No. But I remember him from The Thin Red Line, where he has a very small part in it. But it's just one of the most important parts, and he's the NCO who won't execute the order to send all of his guys up into the hill because Nick Nolte is like that guy who just wants to keep throwing people against the Japanese machine gun to get that medal, and he refuses to do it. It's a very high pressure situation, and it's only about a 10 or 15-minute scene. But to me, he stole that whole movie just with that scene there. I also remember him from a much lighter movie, the last Paul Hogan movie that I remember, Almost an Angel, where he played that guy in the wheelchair. Who was just this bitter, angry man about recently having lost the use of his legs. And I think he had kind of become a drunk or something like that. Yeah. And he was like kind of Paul Hogan's mission, coming back to earth. You also had Amanda Plummer, who I thought did a fantastic job.
Three people right off of Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. You have Adam Goldberg. Who I think just was extremely underrated. Another person who kind of stole scenes. And then of course
he did Dazed and Confused. I can't place the year of Dazed.
I think Dazed and Confused I think is between 92 and 94. So I think this was after.
Probably after. And then of course, and he's only in the last 20 minutes of the movie. You've got, before he was Viggo, you got Viggo Mortensen.
So good, man.
And you just got people that you can just tell these people give a shit. Like, they're invested in this movie. They're like, wow, this is a really great script. Fantastic. Elias Koteas is this priest. He's about to take his vows, but we can see that he is someone who is suffering greatly from these horrific visions. And of course, you're limited by the CGI of the time, but he sees these awful war scenes, where people are impaled, and it looks like something out of like, Vlad the Impaler, like times 100, and he's trying to take his vows, and the scene where, like, I could see where he gets down, and he's face down on the floor, and he starts to become emotional. And so you could see how the people that were, his superiors, I guess you would use the term, are, sort of understanding of that, because it would be an emotional moment. You could see how a person might go that way, but that's not the reason at all.
Right.
And what's so horrible is that, one, he's seeing these horrific things, but I got the impression that these are things that human beings just aren't meant to see.
Then you're not supposed to see it, yeah.
Yeah, like, human beings just aren't designed to handle, and process. It's like more than a human being can, and you're just, I've seen it. I mean, I've seen this movie a lot.
What does he do? He becomes a cop.
Yeah, he becomes a jaded,
for a lighter career choice.
Yeah.
When you see the visions that's coming in, it's a prophecy.
Yeah.
Right. Technically, so he saw the future, and the first thing he did was try to become a cop to try to stop it. So to be to that effect, the image of a police officer technically is to protect and serve. I mean, it's on the side of the car. Yeah. So that's I was surprised that when he became that quick, and he even wrote that book, I was like, damn, man, he really went the hard. I thought he was really close to being Constantine, or that Constantine type character, but instead of magic or witchcraft, it was spirituality and religion, and then he became the other.
He went into service by a different route.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you go back years later, and he's this solitary person. He's not the cop with a wife and two kids, living with the picket fence. He's got a small little apartment. It doesn't look like there's a lot happening in his life. He's like sort of brooding. You see him up on that roof for no reason, and he's just smoking a cigarette. He doesn't want to talk to that guy that like comes up and, he's just kind of he's become this
He's-
sort
yeah,
of solitary
he just
person.
looks miserable.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, and then
Like a
he
hermit.
goes. Yeah, he's kind of
Mhm.
become a hermit. And you see, the scene where he walks into his apartment and Eric Stoltz is just kind of hanging out
Yep.
Mhm.
in his apartment.
Oh,
You
when
know?
he walks in, he's crouched on like the back of his chair.
Yeah.
You know, just abnormally, like no way a human could do that. It just
Yeah,
looks
like a
amazing.
bird. He's
Yeah.
perched like a bird. And they all do that. They have this thing. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah.
The thing that I never got, and I've seen this movie 24 times, is why doesn't the cop remember seeing the angel in his apartment? Because the next few scenes, it's like he's never seen it. Like, did he believe it was a dream that this angel was in his apartment?
What do you mean?
That whole scene when he encounters Eric Stoltz for the first time.
Right.
After that, he goes. It's like he never saw him.
Well, he never sees him again.
He's reacting.
Well, he never sees him again until he's burnt up in the, and then he doesn't realize it's him until he's burnt up in the school. He never really sees him again. He sees Glenn Danzig. Yeah, of course. Who the hell decided to put Glenn Danzig? Glenn Danzig got in there. Of course, Glenn Danzig had to come in and screw it up for everybody.
Yeah.
But I thought that before I jump into Glenn Danzig, Lord help me.
I'm sure you want to.
There's I like Danzig. I listen
know.
to Danzig.
Yeah.
There's that one scene that Eric Stoltz asks him, do you believe that, you're part of God's plan?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And he's like, that's a complicated question. And
Mhm.
Stoltz is he's a little disappointed, but you can tell, we understand who Eric Stoltz is. He's sort of probably heard it a billion times
Mhm.
before. He's like, no, it's not.
Right.
It's not. He just lets him walk out. I mean, you have no idea how the interaction ends. And I guess you assume he just lets him walk out. He's having these, and maybe he's, this cop is one of these people who's been having these weird sort of encounters his whole life, where people just appear and,
When they called him into the one crime scene, they said, I figured this was right up your alley.
Yeah.
So he's probably
Crazy man shows up at my house. It's Tuesday. It was bound to happen.
Yeah.
And he probably let him leave because he's like probably tired. He's like, I don't have time for this shit today.
Yeah.
He looks like that type of a cop. He lives that hard life every single day.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only scene that they're interacting. I just want to jump back to the casting once again. A movie you guys didn't mention. It's the first time that Stoltz and Coteras was in a movie together. I don't know how many of you guys love the 80s movies, but Some Kind of Wonderful, where they were buddies. Coteras was the skinhead Duncan, and Stoltz was the main character trying to get Leah Thompson and avoid a beatdown from the bullies.
I'd never seen that. I knew Stoltz was the lead, but if Elias is in it, I guess I'm going to be watching that movie soon. Like I said, I was born in '81, and so
that movie's '87. You would have been 6 years old when that came out.
Yeah.
I think the last time I saw it was '87 or something like that. So yeah, I didn't remember that at all. I didn't. But anyway, Glenn Danzig, introduces himself as Uziel, the angel, and just leaps through the window. So it springs into this crazy action and this fight scene, and they have this disgusting way of attacking each other. They try to rip each other's hearts out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's not punches or kicks or stabbing, or they literally with their own hands try to reach in and dig out the other person's heart. So Eric Stoltz manages to kill Glenn Danzig and throw him out of a fourth floor window, where he's then hit by a car. But he's greatly damaged, and that's where we also get one of the more humorous characters, which is the coroner.
Straight out of Seinfeld.
Yeah. Just this dry, sort of never misses a beat kind of. This movie vacillates with its screenwriting between humor and cruelty.
I just noticed it from that still. I never realized there was a smiley face on the weight right there on the scale. I never noticed that until now. And it's because this scene right here is so funny because Elias is like, where he doesn't have any eyes. Weren't they on the grill of the car or something? He's like, no, he never had any.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just like goofy banter, and then I just noticed that fucking smiley face. That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Very subtle comedy.
It's a good trope. It's a good trope to have the wacky coroner, because they all seem to have that weird sense of humor. I've known a couple of coroners in my life, and they have that dry and just dark sense of humor.
Oh, you'd have to, I would assume.
They develop, as a
one of my oldest. One of my I knew a guy. Well, I haven't seen him for a long time, but he's funeral director, and kind of the same thing. And like his stepfather was a funeral director, and then he became a funeral director. And it's just, you just get used to weird shit, so you just have a weird sense of humor. Yep. Where was I for a second? So I mean, this all then transports us out to Arizona.
Yep.
The scene, trying to move out there, and we get to see the lovely Virginia Madsen as a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my school teachers, and none of them were Virginia Madsen. They were usually about 500 years older than me, and they were almost always in a bad mood.
My female teachers usually look like Michael Madsen. So
kind of, sort of. They just smoked a half a pack.
Looked like Virginia Madsen.
Huh?
I had a male teacher when I was in school that looked like Virginia Madsen.
No, Jesus. Well, she is the school teacher out there, and this is where we find ourselves connected to the Mary character. And I thought what ended up happening is that Stoltz ends up traveling to this town because something that they're looking for is clearly they're the soul of the most evil person in history, or something like that is buried and trapped. And trapped inside the like in this story, none of the souls can leave the body to go to whatever their destinations are because of this war in heaven. So the soul of this person is still literally trapped inside the body, even though he's been buried for quite a while now. And I thought it was just another clever thing about the writing was that I thought it was interesting that they decided to call the little girl Mary.
Right.
In that, when Stoltz meets her, he even sees it sort of as a sign because he goes out there looking, but he's injured and he doesn't know what to do. And the one person that's going to help him is this kind little girl named Mary.
I'm clever.
And it's good writing. It's really good writing. We don't get writing that good nowadays, or more often than not, we don't. It's a good flick.
Yeah. You have also a really good concept or a fertile concept to explore in a horror movie.
Yeah.
Everybody or every religion or whatever you would have the apocalypse story or Revelations. So to play on that and like as they said, the 23rd chapter when they were going over the old Bible, which was funny because when my father heard it, he was sitting next to me. He goes, 23rd chapter of John of Revelations. My dad goes, there's only 22. Because when he was going to Catholic school, you had to read the Bible. There's only 22 chapters. And that whole concept of what they were doing was great. So any religious, especially Christianity religion, any play on it, the Virgin Mary, it was great. It was a wonderful way to pull it in because you could play with it because even if you didn't know it exactly, you knew it a little.
There are so many movies that either deal with possession or the devil and just so many of them are just bad.
Or they get all the details wrong. Normally I hate that, but this movie I can overlook it for some reason.
What happens is that you'll find one movie that's a success. This is my theory. You'll have one movie that's a tremendous success. Somebody gets it right. And then the studio executives from competing companies or, the same company says, okay, how can we repeat this success?
Right.
And more often than not, the natural conclusion to a given storyline ends with the first movie.
Right.
So, even the best writer is rarely able to reproduce the quality that occurred to the first movie because the premise that you're asking them to sort of flesh out is, you're not giving them a lot of space to work with.
Case Matrix.
I mean, if you look at you look at the Alien series, the first three. When James Cameron took over the second one, he told Ridley Scott, "I'm not doing what you did because it's already been done." He took the story a little bit further. He turned it into a haunted house. I mean, I'm sorry, Ridley Scott had the haunted house. He turned it into the roller coaster. That type deal.
I always think of Cameron when I think of Terminator 2.
Right.
To me, the natural conclusion to that storyline ended when Arnold went down into the smelting pot.
Yeah.
Yep.
The thumbs up. That was the natural conclusion to that storyline. But
exactly.
How can we reproduce this success and, make some more money?
Yep.
And you're just, and every time that they try to do that, the next whatever is a little more diluted most of the time. I'd say 75, 80% of the time.
How you get Noah's Ark with the giant rock people and the audience going, what?
Well, also look at the movies that were around at that time in the 90s. From Dusk Till Dawn also came out roughly around that same time. And the way that movie ended was perfect. You didn't need any of the sequels type
Right.
deal. It was just like, they came up with great independent ideas. And then they said, "Oh, we can make it better." No, it's bad fan fiction.
Yeah, we closed the door.
You're not wrong though. Fan fiction is the perfect way to say a lot of the
Dennis
time.
Hopper to do that second movie is beyond me.
I mean, if you even look at the Matrix, I loved the first Matrix movie.
How can you?
And
not?
when it ended, you saw Neo fly off. You didn't need to see anything else.
Right.
They really didn't add to the story. They just added different characters that they could sell little action figures for.
Yeah.
That type deal.
Yeah, they were basically telling the same story over and over.
Yeah.
And it was plotting and just
look at Star Wars. Look at Star Wars. You've made 6 movies. 6 fucking movies in a row. And you're just like, really? And then you make a 7 through 9 trilogy that's basically a rehash of the 4 through 6 episodes.
Right.
Another Desert Jedi, another Sith Lord with identity issues. He's having an identity crisis. And you're just, haven't I seen this before? The reluctant hero, doesn't know, isn't aware that, that they're really, this super powered person, and you're just like.
And a cute little robot.
Right. Yeah, and a cute little robot rolling across the desert. And I'm like, this looks vaguely familiar, but here we are. All right. So that brings us to Christopher Walken.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, for Walken, and Eric is absolutely right. I think he won the Academy Award for The Deer Hunter, which is just a brutal movie. I mean, it's just unrelentingly bleak.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
Yeah, it is. And I am a huge Walken fan coming around. I think my introduction to Walken, because Deer Hunter was before me, I think it was King of New York.
There you go.
Which to me is far better than De Palma's Scarface. I love me some King of New York. I could watch it anytime, and that was before Fishburne was Lawrence Fishburne. He was just Larry Fishburne,
Larry.
Wesley Snipes, David Caruso, just all these great people. This guy's perfectly cast for this. He plays it just fantastic. And again, vacillating between humorous and inhumanly cruel.
Yep.
Without it being too dark.
Right.
Without it being over the top dark, without it being Exorcist dark, but the cruelty is clearly there.
He was very subtle in this. That's why I loved it.
Yeah, it's a minimalist kind of performance, and you get the impression that, we've talked about this before, when you play someone who's, playing it that old, that you just have to do a little bit, and he seemed to understand it. It isn't some big, screaming thing, where he's, or whatever. It's just.
One of the best scenes is when he's taking Glenn Danzig's body out of the cooler. And he's putting whatever that liquid is on his
Yeah.
face and everything. I don't think he says a single fucking word.
No.
And then he just simply, he puts him in like the crucifix pose, and he literally just walks away and does the shh, boom, and that's it's an action movie cliche. The hero walking away from the big explosion. This was Christopher Walken, of all people, doing that cliche in a horror movie, and it looked more badass than you would probably see in any fucking action movie. You know what I mean?
That was, it's breathtaking how fucking good he was in that. Because I had never, that whole thing, and you're just like, holy shit, like, what did he just do? And fuck.
And it looked like it was one take. So if, if he would have jumped when they did that little fire explosion or nothing, they'd have to reset it or edit it. And it would, if it was one take or if it wasn't, it was seamless the way he just walked away.
When you were talking about that, because you mentioned when he walked in and talked and showed Danzig. If you remember when Danzig first appeared outside of Eric Stoltz's apartment or motel room, he was sniffing. Like, honey, he was like very big and broad and whatever. Christopher Walken walked in and was like a bird, very small, very precise. Boom, boom. That's the difference between somebody who, like Mike was saying, it's got to be big, it's got to be this, and Walken just going, no, it's precise.
John,
when he put the oil on the hand, it wasn't just pouring it; it was just swirl. Did the same thing when he pulled the coin out and said for bus fare. It was almost like a magician moving. And that's what I loved about it. It was just like, because with sleight of hand, I'm over here, and
We talked about this with Walken before when we talked about Sleepy Hollow, and we said he has the ability to do nothing but make it look interesting. That's the way you phrased it, John.
Yeah.
And that's what he does throughout this whole thing. He just does nothing, but you're pretty convinced that he's the angel Gabriel. You're like, fuck, he commands every scene. And I would argue that he continues to command every scene until we get to Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah, he definitely got a presence.
And then Viggo Mortensen just blows everybody like off the stage. And you're like, who the hell is this guy? It's 1995 Viggo. You're like, who the hell? I think I might have remembered him from Carlito's Way if he had done it by then or something like that. Although I wasn't necessarily a fan of Carlito's Way. But I mean, until we get to that, he is just in possession of everything. You're absolutely right. The church scene where he runs into Thomas, it's unusual to see a person, such a young age in church on a weekday. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a sign of excellent character.
Great line, man.
And then, Thomas tries to like pull the cop routine on him. He goes, "Hey, look at me." And that's a mistake. You want me to look at you? Okay. And he gives you that, and Thomas is like, okay, what the fuck is, with this guy? And then he tells him that
Dracula eyes, man.
Yep.
Yeah, and then he tells him, you know how you got that scar on your lip, before you were born, it's just, it blows you away. The scene, you're right, with the trumpet. And look at that, like the look on his face right there, and like
he looks very childlike. He looks childlike himself right there.
He's charmed all the children.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's like the most evil bastard, that there is, like in the universe, damn near. And he's charmed all the children, and the kids are looking at Virginia Madsen like, "What's your problem?"
And did you see what he was doing with the kids when he was charming them?
Yeah, he's looking for
their mouth.
Yeah. Open up. I got a mint for you.
There you go.
Yeah. Sandra, how'd you know my name is Sandra? Well, you look like a Sandra.
Yeah.
Well, look what he also did with Virginia Madsen, when she goes, you have no idea. You have no idea. All of a sudden, it changed on a dime.
Yeah.
Stood up and got in her face, and it was with a whisper.
Yeah.
And it got cold.
Yeah.
He just walks off.
Although, this whole time, he keeps those familiars. He keeps Adam Goldberg around. He won't let him die.
Him and Adam Goldberg, they were priceless together. They had such a good fucking chemistry. I loved it. That's and you needed that comedy in this dark material. You have to break that up. And again, I only know really Adam Goldberg from Dazed and Confused. He did a lot of teen movies, like in the late '90s, 2000. I think like 10 Things I Hate About You, something like that. But he's great in this too. He's a great comic relief.
He was in Saving Private Ryan.
Yes.
And he has a very funny movie called The Hebrew Hammer.
Yes, good movie.
It's an out-and-out comedy where they're kind of spoofing Shaft.
Yep.
And he's the lead in it.
I think I've seen clips like
Very, very funny
it's
movie.
Shaft, but he's a rabbi, right?
Yeah.
Right.
He's got the gold chain with driving
Hold
the
on.
car with the fur.
He's also done a lot of good TV. He was good in Entourage as the
Christ, he was good
kid.
in Friends.
Yeah.
He's Matthew Perry's roommate for like a couple of episodes.
He was in Saving Private Ryan.
Well, yeah.
He was in Saving Private Ryan. He was the Jill.
That death scene is that's the most brutal death scene in the movie.
Oh my God! When he got killed, in that
Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on.
He gets into a knife fight, and all of a sudden he's just, it's rough. Hold on a second. We got some comments here. We got Still Drifter over here in Ireland saying it's good to see Eric here.
Eric, why not Bill?
Yeah,
Well, you're just another monkey. That's all. You're
he's
just
the
another
talking monkey, man. Yeah, self-proclaimed. All right, so and then you've got Defiant Smash saying yo. So thanks for dropping in on the show. So it's just they're trying to stop him from getting that soul, and Adam Goldberg ends up getting killed. That brings in Amanda Plummer. Who just is equal to the task.
Wow. He brings in Honey Bunny.
Yeah,
yes, he does.
Yeah, just a long suffering, still in that hospital gown. He's covered in blood. It's just, it's a hell of a movie. It's
great dialogue in that diner. Oh my God, with the waitress, just great.
When Christopher Walken goes to leave, and I said, "I'll see you later," he goes, "I'll be looking."
Yeah.
One of the great things, and I wanted to touch back on this because I've jumped a little far. Is Bill may have seen this when because Jordan Peterson was just on Rogan, and he was talking about resentment. And people that are forced to be nice. And he's like, you ever meet people that are just super, and like they just are impossibly nice. He goes, when you really get to spend a significant amount of time with a person like that, you find out that they actually are very angry because they're sort of forcing themselves, they're contorting themselves to be nice when they really don't feel that way. And it either comes across as passive aggressive or it just blurts out, sort of sideways. And that's one of the issues in this movie is that the Gabriel character is resentful. He's extremely resentful that he's being asked to bow down, in front of God and to serve the monkeys, the things that he considers to be beneath him. It's his pride. He's just got this, enormous pride after, countless millennia of being who he is, and then suddenly being asked to, take a major step down, and so, this is something that he's just unwilling. I won't say unable, but he's just unwilling to do.
No, he's refusing to do it.
It's turned him into this angry, because you get the impression that, the reason that he vacillates between the humor, because the humor is a genuine, part of his persona, but the resentments have made him this horrifically cruel, thing, that is like what he does to Eric Stoltz. He just tortures Eric Stoltz. He just keeps lighting him on fire.
Or just we talked about we brought up the diner scene with Amanda Plummer, and he wants, because he can't drive, so she's got to drive him, and she's refusing to do it. So he's basically saying, I can wait here a hell of a lot longer than you, so you might as well get going.
That's what he tells her. He tells her, I can wait till the stars burn out.
Yep.
Right.
I can wait here until he goes, can't drive. And the way he just does it, he can't drive.
Yeah.
She's like, why? Why are you doing this? Can't drive.
I just can't.
It's amazing.
It's
amazing in this movie how, like, most of the angels, with the exception of Eric Stoltz's character, the humans were inconsequential. It was like they were annoyance with it. They were kind of, usually in movies like this, it's like they're battling for Earth and take it up. No, you're just in the way. We got our own. If they could just push them away type deal.
Yeah.
And I loved that it was like that, and just like go away.
Yeah.
And that's what Eric Stoltz points out. He goes, you've lost your grace.
Yeah.
you know, you've lost your grace, but you know, sometimes, you know, you just have to do what you're told.
Right.
You know, and that's who we are, you know, and he is just, he's not willing to do this, and he's contorted, you know, almost reality itself, you know, into this, you know, this vicious sort of battle with, you know, endless death and, you know, cruelty, and, you know, he's torturing humans, and souls can't, you know, ascend to heaven or descend to hell. You know, he's got the whole thing in lockdown, you know, over his own resentment.
Right.
You know, and that's, you know, that's not a point that should, you know, necessarily be dismissed. You know, it's a valid, you know, psychological thing that's happening here. You know, it's almost a human thing.
Exactly.
You know, that's happening, and you know, and that's part of what makes this movie so damn good. It's not just some, you know, pea soup, you know, and you know the lights are blinking, and you know these sorts of things, and you're just seeing awful things. You know, this is some sort of awful argument that's going on.
Same theme that Kevin Smith used a couple of years later in Dogma.
Yeah. Who was it Matt Damon? He was the
Ben Affleck.
But who was the one
go along, but wasn't 100% into it?
Who was the go along? I can't remember. Affleck?
Matt Damon was the go along.
Yeah, Matt Damon was. It was all Ben Affleck's idea, and then Ben Affleck's idea. Then he waited until Matt Damon got drunk one night and convinced him to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
To throw the sword.
Yep.
The finger.
It was he threw down his sword. He gave God the finger and like walked out of heaven or something like that.
Yeah.
It was done in a lot more goofy fashion, but it's still the same theme that you're talking about, that resentment and the loss of grace because you let your resentment. It's the same. It's the same thing as we talked about with Christmas Carol.
Oh,
well, there's a lot of it's a theme that runs in a lot of different shows that has a spiritual or religious aspect. You keep thinking, Christ, even a TV show that was on for years called Supernatural, when you met the angels, they were petty and pious. And why do we have to talk to you people? You know, it's like, who the hell do you think you are? What did one guy said? I have 7 faces and one's a lie. That's why women love me. You know, it's like, but that was one of the angels' response. Who the hell are you? You know, type deal. That was the concept. Was that, you know,
that's
amazing because they were showing human emotions.
Well, that's a common. Go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's a response that occurs in the Bible, isn't it? On more than a few occasions, you know, where God says, you know, who the hell are you to, you know, what have you done that, you know, you're around here to question me? You know, shut up. You know,
where were you when I created the world?
Yeah, exactly. You know, like who the hell are you? You know, you're like this little, you know, microbe of a, you know, piece of sand or something. You know, and you know that's another argument that comes up in the movie. You know, you know, where Christopher Walken tells Virginia Madsen, you know, the only thing that you'll ever be sure of is that you won't understand why.
Yeah.
You know, that was an argument, and you could argue that Lobo borrowed it from here, but that was another argument that the devil said in the basement, and I trapped the devil.
Yeah.
Because you have all this useless information, but the only thing you can ever really be sure of is that you're never going to understand why.
Yeah.
If you guys have ever seen Terrence Stamp's Tree of Life, that's a more serious take on it, but it is super artistic, and it covers the same ground in a more visual way. Very serious though.
Okay, I want to. I never got around. It's Terrence Malick, isn't it?
I'm sorry, Terrence Malick. That's right.
It's
well worth the trip.
Okay. I'll check it out. Yeah, I mean, there are some reasonably decent arguments for a mid-budgeted, you know, sort of 90s horror movie that are in here. You know, and the people that, you know, they cast here, you know, seem to give a crap about acting them out to the best of their abilities within the parameters of the script.
The 90s thing, man, that could only happen in that window from like 91 to 98, where all those great movies were being made.
Yeah. It'll be maybe another generation before we get something like. Well, it's happening now to some extent. You know, we can see what's happening with, you know, 30 years later. We've got Eggers. Yeah, A24. We've got Eggers, and we've got Ari Aster, and you know the Coen brothers are still around. You know, working through A24, and they're putting out those independent movies.
Exactly.
You know, Coen brothers. Joel Coen is now doing Macbeth, and you know, I just saw The Green Knight. They're going for it. There are people out there that are genuinely going for it these days. That brings us to, and they're still battling for the soul, but then that brings us to Viggo.
Here we go.
I'm going to leave it to you guys. Who wants to talk about this?
How can you top that? I think
can't.
the only one that comes close is Constantine, and that was a little over the top. This
Yeah.
is so subtle, and he's just so malevolent. But again, like John said, doing nothing and making it seem interesting. You know, he's not devil with horns and a red tail. He just has a couple of long fingernails and some slick back hair, and he kills it like that.
Yeah.
Again, it's like with Walken, it's his presence. You know, he's just squatting down there, and I think I don't know if he's talking to in this scene either Elias or Virginia Madsen, but he says something like, basically they're having an argument. He's like, if I wanted to, I could fill your mouth with your mother's feces or something like that.
Yeah.
That's pardon the pun, that's a goofy as shit line. But when Viggo says it in this movie, you buy it, and he would do something that vile to her in a heartbeat.
And that's the word. It's vile. A lot of times when people play the devil, or in this situation, they go for the malevolent or the evil quality in it, and it's not. It's extremely vile.
Yeah, they want to be like over the top scary and this and that.
My favorite line that he says in this whole movie is when he's talking to Elis, and he turns around and goes, "You would say your prayers and jump into bed and be afraid or jump in under the covers and be afraid I was under the bed." And I was. I just love that. Fuck, and it kills. It brings it right back to like being the kid afraid of being under what's under the bed.
Yeah.
I also love the fact that it was. Two houses, one too many. He's doing this purely for two houses, one too many, because it's who was it? A Divine Comedy where he said, I'd rather lead in hell than follow in heaven.
That's Paradise Lost.
Thank you.
Yeah, like I'd rather lead hell than serve in heaven. Something.
It's better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But that's the point when that's exactly, he kept that inner thing. I really think that was his like inner monologue, if you want to use the acting term. No. This is my gig.
Yep.
Well, who the hell are you?
It's a weird thing when you realize that he's actually Switzerland in this, where he's actually the neutral party. And he's jockeying for himself, but the war is not his. He's just trying to fix it for himself.
Yeah, he's trying to unclog the traffic jam.
Yep.
What you get the impression that he sees more than Gabriel does.
Yes.
Yeah, he sees the big picture.
He's like in the Overwatch position. He's not God, but he might be second. Like there's only one person that sees a little bit more than I do, and it ain't Christopher Walken.
He's also speaking from hindsight,
right?
Because he had the big battle.
Yeah, that's right.
Gabriel is doing what he did millennia before.
That's why because Gabriel goes,
challenging me.
That was your fight, not mine. No, it's the same.
There's a great, that's fantastic, because he actually tells Elias Koteas that, what if, all these things are a test of your faith, and like an angel that we both know, you didn't understand.
Yeah.
That maybe the entire thing about, giving humans a soul and asking, the angels to, follow these orders was just a test of faith, and Gabriel, in his pride and resentment, failed the test. In the same way that Elias Koteas has been struggling all these years, being shown these things, that was a test of his faith also. He hasn't overtly failed necessarily, because it seems that God has something bigger in store for him. I mean, he's here talking to the devil.
Right.
He's not working in some small, Chicago parish or whatever. He's like on some sort of cosmic thing, happening here. But Viggo sees everything.
Right.
Viggo sees everything, and he's trying to, sort of prepare a path. So that, things can sort of, the stores can open again, and, people can get back to work, so to speak. and he plays it. There's that old expression that the devil first and foremost is always a gentleman,
Right.
which
Very
I
suave.
don't. I don't believe that.
Mhm.
But here it sort of works, and I'll get into this in a second. Until the my retort to that is until the mask slips.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
and at the end, the mask of Viggo slips. And that's it's pretty horrible.
Mhm.
It turns out, they go down to this, the Indian reservation for
Yeah.
what is probably the lamest exorcism that we have ever seen in the history of exorcisms, in any sort of. But then these guys, it just explodes into this other thing because what they're trying to do is so far out of their league.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just explodes into this battle royal.
Mm-hmm.
Where the angel Gabriel shows up at the exorcism, and I said it that way. I was like the craziest exorcism in history.
Yeah, you got this. The group of the Native Americans trying to exorcise this demon from this young girl, and then just out of nowhere, this pickup truck crashes through with Elias driving, Amanda Plummer's clutching him around the neck, and then just everything goes fucking ape shit, and it's amazing. It's a fantastic, fun scene. You know what I mean?
Again, I think you were the one who was saying, you could say that this is just dumb as shit, but somehow it fucking works.
It works.
Right.
It works.
It works.
You're like, holy shit, that didn't even occur to me how dumb that is until you just said it just now. I've been watching this movie for like almost 30 years. That never occurred. I'm like, no, that's fucking stupid. I'm like, no, it's not stupid. It's the prophecy.
If you use the Indians for their aspect, they were also very spiritualism. Imagine if they were doing that in a Catholic church with a priest, and all of a sudden they drove a truck through the walls and a stained glass window sill.
Yeah,
that's when I would go, check, please, and I'm out.
Yeah,
well, I mean, we had that, and Eric, you covered this recently, End of Days, where Gabriel Byrne walks into the church, and it's a completely different performance between Gabriel Byrne and Viggo.
Oh,
right.
I think Viggo, is Viggo, much more to the bone.
Yes.
So to speak, as opposed to like the over the top sort of thing. Who knows? Maybe, you couldn't have gotten away with driving a truck in the middle of a church in the middle of Chicago, but you're in an isolated Indian reservation.
Right.
It kind of works. And then, just
everybody's
before
gone, the town is emptied,
Yeah, there's nobody there. And then, Lucifer just shows up and just cleans house, man. He just wipes everybody off the fucking board, including oh God, including Christopher Walken and
Gabriel.
Before he gets wiped off the board, can I also say a great line from Christopher Walken?
Sure.
When Elias pulled the chain and hit the truck and he went through the window, and the first thing he said was, "Good
This is
move.
gonna hurt.
God damn it! Why don't you fight for me?"
Oh.
I love that when he said, "You want to come on ice cream anytime you want." There's no school. But I mean, I love that. I was like, "Oh my God, why don't you fight for me?"
Yep.
Because that's why he's trying to get that evil soul. Because they can't. We're not, angels aren't as imaginative as you monkeys are.
Yeah, it's a stalemate.
Well, I took it. It was like World War I.
Yeah.
The lines were stagnant, and they're all looking for the secret weapon that'll tip the balance.
Yeah,
and
I loved it when he
this
said
guy
that,
from Korea could do it, which it was creepy as hell to have that little girl talking in his voice. Just
the Chosen, the Battle of Chosen.
Yeah, talking about Chosen. That was a good touch.
I'll be honest. If I was a cop and I went up there and I knew that the angel Gabriel was coming, I'd have like a fucking AK, or I wouldn't have no little revolver with like 6 shots. And the little girl says that with like a proper defense, you could hold off a whole battalion, and all he's got is a chain. He's got a chain and like a little 380 or 38. With like it looks like a Saturday night special or something. With like one bullet, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing, man? I'd have claymores and.
They're all quick humans, and this guy is the baddest, talking monkey, the most evil talking monkey. Of course, he's going to see it as you can hold off here. And while the rest of them are like, I don't know, they got their thumbs up their asses.
Yeah, I'd be pitching the fields. It'd be like something out of Braveheart or something, man. You know, there'd be like reinforcements coming in. I don't know. I don't know about that shit, but you know, I mean, Viggo steals it again.
Yeah.
Viggo steals it again, and then you know, becomes who he really is.
Right.
And when he makes that like squealing sound when he's eating Christopher Walken's heart, you know, and this is what I mean by the mask slips.
Yeah.
Like he's still sort of being the same, but his mouth is full of blood, and his hands are full of blood, and he's come on, you want to come with me, don't you? You know, let me take you with me. Come on, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on with this guy? You know,
he's dapper even with the blood on his face.
Yep.
He's scary as hell, man.
Yeah.
Scary as hell.
Exactly.
And then I don't know how many of you caught this, but Elias Cortez makes a terrible mistake. He taunts him.
Oh.
He taunts him. And I've seen this whole saga, like the whole prophecy saga.
Yeah.
You know, he could have been like Virginia Madsen. Virginia Madsen's like not making eye contact. No, I'm staying here. Thanks. You know, appreciate everything you did. You know, sorry. You know, can't help you. You know, he gets in Viggo's face.
Right.
And taunts him about not having a soul. And Viggo just stares at him and he smiles for a second. He goes, leave the light on, Thomas.
Yeah.
And he just walks away. And the coolest superpower of all time when he explodes into like 1,000 bats.
Yeah.
That's like the ultimate fucking superpower. Holy shit, that would be cool. But what would happen, what ends up happening is at the beginning of the second movie, because I've seen all of these, and they're not terribly good. The second one's a little worse, and by the third one, it's just, you know, it's off the rails. But this character, the Thomas character, has been tormented for years. He goes into like live in a monastery because Lucifer himself has been tormenting him and just haunting him and harassing him, you know, and all these, you know, and he ends up setting himself on fire. It gets so bad. Like he self-immolates at the beginning of the movie.
Walken's the only one that returns for the sequels, right?
Yeah, Walken is the only one. Yeah, eventually Walken down there gets on Viggo's nerves so bad that he kicks him out of hell. He can't take the harassment. I guess Walken's just giving it to him in the neck like every 5 minutes, you know, some sort of, you know, smart ass. And event that's how he crawls out of hell, like this hole opens up in the ground and Christopher Walken just comes climbing out, you know, and he yells down at the ground something to Lucifer, you know, about you know, told you or something like that. And Eric Roberts is Michael, the Archangel Michael, and I'm like, Eric Roberts.
That's an interesting choice for.
I like Eric Roberts.
I do too. It's just interesting.
Now you have me wanting to watch it. I never watched the sequels because I'm so.
There's like I think there's like 5 of them total.
I think there's been a couple.
Make it sound good.
The first 3 have Christopher Walken.
Right.
After that, he's not in there anymore.
Yeah, there's like 2 more, I think. After
and
that.
I think the third one actually brings the Mary character back. She's a woman now.
Okay.
She's in there for like a minute. She's only in there for like a minute, or maybe it was one without her. I think it was the one with Walken. And in the third movie, he's been stripped of all his powers. He's just like sort of cast out as a human. He becomes a talking monkey who can't die, and he's kind of wandering the earth. You know, just kind of observing the ongoing battle, you know, or different battles that are happening. And the third movie is just awful. But the second one, it's got its moments. Jennifer Beals is in it.
Yeah.
Jennifer Beals is in it, and Eric Roberts and Christopher Walken. And it's worthwhile, but it starts out with Thomas' character just not able to take it anymore, and he commits suicide.
That's too bad.
Because
I like Thomas a lot in this.
So did I, but he just should have kept his mouth shut. You know, you don't go around taunting Lucifer, you know, like to his face or anything like that. Right. You know, you're just like, okay, you know, could have played it that way, but he chose not to.
Unless you're Constantine.
Man, yeah. And even Constantine, man, he suffered. Man,
oh, yeah.
He pulled his fucking lungs out.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, you're going to make fun of me. I'm going to lose, but you're going to feel it for a minute, you know, here. You know, he literally pulls his lungs out with his bare hands.
You're not getting away from me that way.
Yeah, you're not getting. There's no free lunch here. This ain't happening.
You got to earn it.
Supposedly, Keanu's in talks to return to that role.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
I heard him on Stephen Colbert when he was being interviewed. He turned around and said, "I would love to do Constantine again."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's always loved the character.
He goes, "I would love to take another crack at it. I really had such a great time with that movie."
The television series that was on for a while was really, really good, and it was very loyal to the comic. Mm-hmm. It was extremely loyal to the comic. I enjoyed watching that, and I was very disappointed that it was canceled. It made it through one season. I had quite a few Constantine comics, and I mean, they took the stories directly from the canon, and they were dark and awful, and it was.
They tried to bring it to the CW network, who had all the other DC comics, and they eventually brought the character into one of the shows, but they tried to take the whole series over there. That deal, like they did with Supergirl from CBS.
Yeah, they brought him into that Legends of Tomorrow series with and it didn't fit. You're like, he doesn't fit in space.
Right.
What are you doing? Stop.
Creepy LA. It's
there was a TV show that was on called Supernatural, and in the 4th episode, there was an
You
angel.
do love this show, Supernatural. You bring it up
every
10 minutes.
I like the 3rd and the 4th one because the way they handled the apocalypse very well.
Okay.
But in that season, there was an angel who wore a trench coat and everything else. And I found out later on that's because they had permission to use the character Constantine from DC. But then somebody got in and stopped it. So the guy who wrote the first 5 years turned him into the angel, but kept the trench coat and the loose tie and everything else to make him look like him.
Nice.
That deal. They do a nice touch with that. Constantine's becoming more and more of a very, very popular figure. I'm waiting for the movie to come out. I hate to say it, but Zack Snyder's next shot at DC Redemption.
Yeah, a 3-hour version of Constantine.
I love Justice
in slow motion.
I love Justice League. What he did with Justice League. He only got one shot at it, so he just did everything.
Yeah.
True.
They only gave, and then they pulled him right out of the universe.
Yeah.
They pulled all of his stories right out of the universe.
That's right.
And you're just like, what the hell are you doing? Like that last Wonder Woman movie sucked and
He does fine when he's working from good source material like 300.
Great.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, it's a damn good movie. And it's on Tubi. We should have said that at the beginning right now.
That's where
I think it's also on Pluto TV. I think it might be on Pluto, but it's on Tubi. So if you want to watch it right now, it's free. And you definitely should. You don't, this show covers a lot of movies that people don't talk about. Nobody talks about The Prophecy.
No.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about The Prophecy.
Well, like I said, I had totally forgotten about it. This movie even existed, other than the fact that my dad loved it, until we all have the schedule. And when I saw this, I'm like, okay, now's my chance to finally sit down and watch it. And I'm glad I did, because you got, again, great performances, not just with Walken, but again, Elias Koteas, Virginia Madsen's really good. Eric Stoltz. You never see these actors in bad roles. They might be in bad movies, but they are always good. This one, however, is not a bad movie. It is fantastic from beginning to end. And I loved it. I was so glad that I decided to join this week.
They definitely elevate what could have been disastrous. A disastrous script. They elevated it to the point where you can't look away. And I'm curious how much of that was improvised and how much of that was them going straight off the script. I have no idea, but I would be curious which parts were which.
And especially being the characters that they were playing, they could have easily gone over the top, and and they didn't. They just gave good right down the line, great performances.
Yeah, because you could interpret these characters so widely.
Yeah.
This could have gone wrong, man.
Yeah,
this could have really gone wrong, and it went they got everything right, and here we are 27 years later talking about it. So good for us.
I was just happy to see Elias Koteas in a lead role.
Yeah.
You never see that. You didn't see it before. You really haven't seen it then. Like I said, the biggest thing I've ever seen him was, it's really, it'll never be on this channel. I grew up in '81, so 1990s Ninja Turtles movie. You know, the live action.
Yeah.
It was Casey Jones. That's all I knew from my childhood.
Yeah.
But then again, he's in this, and then again, like Apt Pupil when he's the bum, or he's got a very small role in Gattaca, or you know, he's always great. One of my favorite fun, you know, demon movies is if you've ever seen Fallen with Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
He's the serial killer in the very beginning
right.
that's put to death.
Yeah.
He's different
Yeah.
in every role, but he's got a charisma.
Yeah. We got to cover that soon. You got Donald Sutherland, you got John Goodman, Denzel, Elias Koteas. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, that's a great fucking movie.
Add that to the list, buddy.
Yeah. We got to get that on the calendar. All right, I think that's as good a place as any to bring this to a close. Watch the fucking movie because it's really fucking good.
You put that in the poster, American Werewolf in New Jersey. Watch the fucking movie. It's that fucking good.
Movie. It's really fucking good.
We want that on a T-shirt.
Yeah, that's there you go. Next week we are done for the week. Next week we are coming back on Wednesday with a fucking out there movie. I'm swinging for the rafter. I'm swinging for the fucking fences on this one. I'm going with Mel Gibson's Apocalypto.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that was a movie that came out right around the time that Mel Gibson had his meltdown, or right after his meltdown. So it just got blown off.
Yeah, I think it was like right after.
I thought that was a fucking tremendous movie, and it was this follow-up movie to The Passion of the Christ, when he was at the high water mark. And then, just personally, things fell apart for him. And so that movie just got no love whatsoever. But I fucking love that movie. I think it's tremendous. And then on Thursday, we're back with some Stephen King. And we're going to get into some Mike Flanagan. We're going to talk about Gerald's Game. Yeah, we've got some good flicks coming up next week. My thanks to John K. Alvarez, your average talking monkey. We've got my thanks once again to another talking monkey down there on the bottom right, and to Eric from Hey Internet. Eric here.
My pleasure.
Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend, and stay out of the fucking snow.
Watch the fucking